go.
So, I'm here to talk about an educational dilemma of America versus Europe. George Washington Carver once said, "Education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom." The key can be many different sizes and shapes. What if the key isn't good enough? A long-standing debate in educational systems is whether European schools, specifically of the Hungarian and English, surpass the education standards of the American counterparts. However, the differences between the European school specialization system and the American one, and the minuscule gap in test scores, result in a lack of need for Americans to mimic European school structure. European schools, on average, score higher on testing than American schools. This brings up questions of whether or not their school system is better. Most people, when they are fighting for European schools, say that they have better test scores, so they must have better schools. However, with PISA scores like this, which is the Program for International Student Assessment, most European schools score higher than America, and usually above 481, but the best are Finland and Norway with 519 and 515. The only people that score above them are like China, and England and France score right above America with like 494, and I think France was 496. And Hungary is one of the only European countries that actually score below. And one of the only other schools with a similar school structure to America, which is Canada, scores higher than pretty much everybody except for Norway and Finland. And they have like 550. Okay. So European schools are set up in a specialization system, which means that when you get into high school, at some point during like your high school life, you'll be separated. Students will be separated on test scores and grades, which they're separated in paths such as like vocational, professional, and what they call grammar school or secondary school. So for most countries, the vocational path is like engineers and plumbers and stuff, and they are like the people that score lowest, and so their job's kind of like easier and don't pay as much. And then professional schools are like hairstylists and people that like might have to go to college, and I think teachers might fall in there. I didn't know for sure which jobs fall into those. And then grammar schools and secondary schools are for kids that take like AP classes and honor classes and are ahead in everything and do really well on tests, and they usually go on to university. They're like some of the only students in all Europe, the European school system, that go into university, and they're the only ones that can be doctors and lawyers and accountants. So specifically England versus Hungary, and whether or not they're better than America. England has, for most European schools, a closer education system to us, which the only difference is sixth form, which once you turn 16, you are you're pretty much out of high school, and you can choose to go to a vocational school or sixth form. And sixth form's like a more intense study of 4 subjects that will help you get into university. And then Hungary is like a really strict specialization track, in that when you turn like 16, you finally get into high school, and you get stuck into these 3 different tracks, and you have to apply for admission to high school, and then you also have to apply to admission to university or college. But those are the main differences. So the best thing about American schools over European schools is that though European schools can group everybody together, so like the really smart kids all the kids are on the same level. So if everybody's at the same level, then the teacher no longer has to make lesson plans for each level of kids. Like the high up students and the low students, they can focus on that one group, and so they can better bring them forward and create lesson plans for those students. But American schools have the advantage of everybody being together, so everybody has an equal opportunity to take the same classes And if you work hard, even though your IQ might be low, if you work really hard, you'll be able to get ahead. Which in Europe, in some places, you cannot get ahead unless you're just made smart. Like, you can't be hardworking because you're not going to get anywhere, even if you are. Mostly just that it doesn't give students the right to choose. One of the drawbacks of European schools is that when you separate the students into actual schools, like grammar school, if it's a different building, the government, if it's funding it, will give more money to the higher up schools rather than the vocational schools. So the kids that are in grammar schools are getting better textbooks, better rooms, just a better overall education. And everybody else is kind of just getting the scraps that are left over, and it doesn't really help anybody to get ahead. So even though it seems like you're really helping, you're not. And then with the lower kids, if they don't have a role model to look forward to, look up to in their classes, then they won't have any reason to get better. And if you're stuck in this pathway of vocational, you're not going to try to get A's in school because you're already stuck doing this. There's nothing to work for because you pretty much already know what job you're getting. A lot of European people that are against the tracking system, and they actually want a school system more like ours because they said that it's biased towards people that have more money to begin with because they have the chance to get a better education. Like if some really wealthy person can pay a lot for their kids to get tutors and stuff, so they're going to do better on tests than people who are barely making it by and can't focus on studying. And then one of the biggest arguments that I've seen is that the school system isn't the reason that the Europeans are getting better test scores. Because if that were the case, then all the European schools would be above America. However, schools like Europe, like England, that have a school system more like America are barely scoring above us. Whereas schools like Hungary, where it's really strict specialization, they're scoring below us. So if the school system was really helping, they would be above us. And then schools like Canada, which I don't know how they got ahead, but schools like Canada that are scoring really high have a school system exactly like ours, where they go to school and they even have middle school like we do, which most European schools only have primary and secondary schools. So they have elementary school, middle school, high school, and then you go to university. And it's exactly like America, but they're learning just as good as us. So though at face value European systems seem to be the best thing around, American schools are up to par, if not better. Without the upper level students to guide them, lower level students may not try as hard. Also, the upper level students may develop a superiority complex with being separate from other people.
I can't get it to stop.